Good morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene. And today we're talking about a game called Low Fantasy Gaming, right?
Correct. Low Fantasy Gaming.
That's all I know.
In a series of episodes devoted to alternatives to D&D 5th edition, I came up with a D&D clone, retro clone, OSR. You can label it any way you want, describe it any way you want. But basically, in this case, Low Fantasy Gaming tries to make the using both old original D&D and AD&D rules and mechanics with elements of 5th edition. So they kind of combined old with new, and they want to run a game that is that has the feel of the old game but has that modern elements. And they want to make a fantasy game that's low fantasy, meaning that's not a lot of high magic, lower level.
I get the idea.
Lower powered.
I get the idea in all of these not D&D games.
Yes.
That these people don't like magic.
Well, that was just me that I picked. I mean, that's me determining what to talk about. But if you want to get away from the high fantasy that D&D is, how do you do that? One, you eliminate the high fantasy part and you go for a different grittier, right? Grittier, we've been using that term a lot when describing this series of alternatives to D&D. And there's no doubt about it that low fantasy gaming is definitely trying to do that. It's trying to make fantasy game that is just not a lot of magic, not a lot of high level characters. I mean, you get pretty powerful, but there's always a chance that you might get killed in this game because of the elements that they use because of the rules, right? There's the elements in the rules that make it so that you don't get really super powerful like you would in original D&D, or I mean not original D&D, but 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
The focus is to make the game deadlier, lower powered, and for example, the stats are lower. The levels are capped at level 10 or level 12. I forget exactly which one it is. I'm pretty sure, but you can't go higher than that level. After level 4, you don't roll for hit points anymore. Whatever you roll, you get 1 hit point plus your Constitution bonus. So at the most, usually, if you
that's like 3.
If you have a high Constitution, I mean like an 18, you're going to get 5 hit points per level after 4th level. So what does that do? That makes it that you're not going to have 150 hit points at 10th level or whatever the average would be, depending on what kind of character class. You're going to just have slowly progress higher and higher, but you're just not going to have that many hit points. So death is always a little bit around the corner. There's no death saves, right? There's no death saves like in 5th edition. There's no negatives. You hit 0. If somebody doesn't do something like help you to get to 1 hit point, you're dead.
I was reading the review of this game, and it says that it's a human-centric game. That if you want to play one of the 2 classic fantasy races, elves and dwarves, there's a short chapter on that.
Yeah, they do have certain weird ones, like they have this Skaven, not Skaven. I'm sorry, that's Warhammer Fantasy. But they have other races in the game that they allow, like halflings and or gnomes. I forget which one.
It says there's only if you want to play one of the 2 classic fantasy races, elves and dwarves.
Huh. Well, I know they have a list. Maybe that's in the original rules. I have the deluxe version of it.
Oh.
So they might have added some more stuff. So I think with the goal of being a grittier, more deadlier game, I looked at the rules and I looked at the book and I said, well, how do they achieve this, right? How do they believe they achieve it? So they say it in their first few pages of their book, of the rule book, that they want simple rules, right?
I'm sorry. You just told me that it's a mix of original D&D
right.
and advanced D&D.
As elements, yeah.
Elements.
Yeah.
Oh, elements. It's
yeah.
not. Are they OSR, ORSO?
I think you can. They qualifies as OSR, but they don't Nowhere in their book, nowhere in their pages does it say OSR, right? So they're not necessarily part of the OSR community, but but because they are using old AD&D rules.
They say they're using old AD&D
Right.
rules.
That's their basic. That's their basis that's where they start from.
Okay.
And they want to mimic that kind of gameplay feel, right? But they also add elements of modern D&D. Like they have advantage and disadvantage
to make it simpler.
To make it simpler, and then what they do is they simplify the rules. Now, how do they do this? They simplify the rules by they eliminate a lot of skills, right? So they don't have as many skills, and if they also they included characteristic roles, right? So instead of trying to find if you are trying to do something that's just taking your raw strength or something like that, there's no skill you use. They just say, well, just use a characteristic roll. Use your strength roll, and because most characters gain, well, they don't gain a lot of attribute points. Their attributes don't go up very much, but usually their attributes are above 10, and some of them actually decide to raise their attributes a little bit more during play. They have an attribute roll where you just roll a d20 and you roll under your attribute.
Okay. Because
most people have higher than 10.
Yeah.
So if you have a 13 strength, you roll attribute roll
under 13.
And you succeed. That's not in D&D, original D&D. That's not in AD&D. And that's not even in 5th edition. And then they have qualities of success, right? So if you roll under half that number, then it's like a good success. Or
I'm sorry, simplification just went out the window.
Well, no, because what they do too on their character sheet, they have if you're really number agoraphobic, or you want to call it, they have a chart on the back of the.
They have a chart.
They have a chart saying, well, if this is your attribute, great success would be 6, and astounding success would be a 3. Right, so they do it to do math for you.
That's a good thing. If they have charts, all I know is when I sat down to play, what was it? It was a game that Felipe was running.
Okay, Conan?
No, Conan was the math was funky for me because I couldn't figure out what it was they were trying to get me to do. But no, it was the crunchy system that you guys like, stars, out in the stars.
Space opera.
I remember sitting down at a game and I remember people handing me charts, and I remember looking at everyone, and all of these guys are going, I love these charts. These are so cool. And I'm going, what the hell am I supposed to do with this?
Oh, you're so agoraphobic.
Anyway, I'm just saying.
So they have there's spots on the character sheet that say, this is.
Well, if they do the math for you, that's always good, especially for math challenged people, which most gamers aren't. But
yeah, they also say that they like fast and engaging combat rules. So that's what they say. A lot of the characters or adversaries don't have a lot of hit points. Yeah, combat tends to be pretty quick. Also for you. So you better be careful. They call it dangerous and greedy. Part of the dangerous is the fact that you're never going to be super powered. I mean, you're going to have a lot of hit points compared to regular people, but you're not going to be like right now. We are 4th level. And I have 22 hit points.
Okay,
which is not a lot. And then after 5th level, I'm only going to get 1 hit point per my Constitution bonus, and my Constitution bonus is 0.
Because you're a good gnome or something, aren't you?
Well, yeah, there's that. And I didn't put a lot of points to Constitution because they don't give you a lot of points to distribute at the very beginning. So you're not going to be overpowered. You're not going to have usually nobody has the 18th anything because it's just too many points on one attribute. So I think the highest number I have is 16. So that's part of the dangerous. And it's dangerous because you don't have a lot of hit points. It's greedy because there's not a lot of magic either, right? It's quasi-realistic.
But do you guys have a magic user in your party?
No.
Okay. So you're just a bunch of... Well, I hear part of your game, so I know that you're getting your butt kicked sometimes.
Yeah, left and right. I think we have a monk. I don't know what he is. That's just, again, and they don't use regular. They don't use regular classes like I am an artificer, which is somebody who's, can tinker with stuff and makes weird things. Like you can make a chainsaw like sword or something like that. But that's not where I decided to go into. I decided to make a rifle or a gun, like a blunderbuss.
You and your wanting to be the gunslinger thing.
Well, yeah. It was. I'm in a strange phase. And for example, Mike is an artificer, but he's in a totally different direction than I am. So that's kind of interesting, right? We're both artificers, but he's on a different direction than I am. And that's the way the game is, even though there's not very many classes or
I have a question about this game because I looked it up to do this episode. I looked up reviews on it and stuff.
Yes.
And this is the one that was a PDF first.
Right. It's free PDF.
Okay. So I think the version that I looked up and did my looked and got ideas from is from that version.
Right.
Because I don't see artificer in here. It says there's only 5 classes: barbarian, bard, fighter, magic user, and rogue. So your deluxe edition must have added stuff.
Well, what happened is that it was a free PDF, right? And that's all it was. And the guy kept changing stuff and adding. He had different versions he kept updating it. And then finally somebody like previous people, they said, we want a book. We want a book. And he goes, well, that's out of my.
There's no way I can make a book.
I'm not going to do that. So they urged him, and he did a Kickstarter. Okay. And he did rather well, I guess. And did I do the Kickstarter? I didn't do the Kickstarter for this Low Fantasy Gaming.
But you bought a bunch of them.
Right. Well, no. What happened was, it's long story short story long. I got on a different Kickstarter he decided to do a low life 2080 or 2090, which is like a cyberpunk type of game. And with that, obviously he did rather well. He did a Kickstarter for Low Fantasy Gaming, and he came out with the Low Fantasy Gaming Deluxe book, right? Which I didn't buy or had anything to do with that Kickstarter. Then he did the 2090 Kickstarter, Low Life 2090.
Which you were all over because I remember you going, "Oh my God, this is so cool."
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I really like the idea of a cyberpunk, with fantasy, so kind of shadow running.
Yes,
or like
but
shadow
not so crunchy.
Yeah, and not so crunchy. So I decided to go on a Kickstarter, and then for what was it for
stretch goals?
No. So I don't remember a lot of stretch goals, but I just got the book. But you could buy they gave me a code. Yeah, they gave me a code for Low Fantasy Gaming, and the code was for for Drive-Thru RPG, where they print the book for you, and because
because your guys were going, I need a game that's not such high magic and as more gritty.
I don't know why I did it, but I go, oh, this is
I believe he did it because Mike wanted a game like this.
I think he didn't want D&D anymore, or D&D 5th edition, or whatever we were playing. It was too much.
Wanted it more gritty.
Yes, and every other game that I mentioned was for him too crunchy.
Yes,
right. I mentioned Warhammer Fantasy. I mentioned. A Chartmaster, which is
Chartmaster.
No, I'm just kidding. It's called Zweelander, right?
Oh yes, one with Zweelander. Isn't that the one? Oh no, the one that we played was the American version.
That's
America.
the same system.
But it has like 137 pages of attributes or skills.
No, it has 100 different people that you can play in.
Yes. So easy to choose from.
Yes. So anyway, he didn't want to play any of those, and so I thought, oh, the Low Fantasy Gaming book, and I think they were like $10 or $15 a piece because I pay just for the ad cost and shipping. So I go, well, I'll just buy 3 of them and give them to my friends, and that's what I did. Was it Low Fantasy Gaming? No, I gave the 2090 books to them. And I shipped them to them and stuff like that. So they have those books, but I didn't ship them I never bought the Low Fantasy Gaming,
you got one for yourself.
I got one for myself because I go, I was kind of interested in it, and so I was talking about it, and then they go, well, let's play. I go, oh, okay. So then they bought the PDF of the Low Fantasy Deluxe version, and that's where we have all the rules and the added stuff. So he did change the rules quite a bit from the free PDF to the Low Fantasy Game.
I just wanted to mention this because we had a question from our one of the last episodes we did on, what was that game?
Simbarum.
And somebody said, all I see is the 5e edition. Why I can't find the other one? It just looks like, why would you want to do this if it's just a 5e edition? And because we're talking about not D&D
Not
games.
D&D.
And I told Saul, I had the same problem as this person because when I was looking it up, I kept going to this 5e edition.
Yes.
And I'm like, so when you're looking stuff up on the internet for specific games, like Saul kept calling this low life fantasy gaming,
Right.
Because of the other one,
Right.
Low Life 2090,
Right.
I couldn't find it. So then when I finally did find it, it was because I go, that's not the name of it. And then I put in the right name, but I got the old review from just the original PDF.
Correct.
So if you want to find Symborium, is that the one that we did? Simbarum. You have to actually go to Free League and then go to their games to see the original one.
Right.
Versus the 5e one that is all over the internet because it's just coming out.
Yeah, I think they kickstarted it in 2021 and they're fulfilling it in August of this year. So people are getting their books and retailers are getting their books.
Yeah.
And most of the time, usually, they want to get the people who kickstarted their game. They want to get the books into their hands first before they start retailing it.
Right.
So there's always a big push because people who pay for the Kickstarter and get the book after they see it in retail
are not going to be happy.
And they always complain. They're not all of them, but there's a lot of people who complain, going, "Why did I Kickstarter when I could just go to my store and get it?"
Because you get all the special stuff, right?
Sometimes. But so anyway, so this one is Low Fantasy Gaming Deluxe.
Okay, Deluxe.
Which it's actually a really nice book. It's full color. I don't think
you
I
need
paid
to put
for
that in the notes because we just called it Low Fantasy Gaming because that's what you wrote down,
Right?
And that's what I looked up.
But what I'm actually reviewing is Low Fantasy Gaming Deluxe.
Yes,
right.
I'm just saying, because when you're looking up stuff on the internet, it can be confusing if you put in the wrong words.
Right, and so this is made by Pickpocket Press. He has his own company. I don't remember the name of the person who.
You can put that in the notes also.
Yes.
Stephen J.
Dudinsky?
No, Grzicki. I think that's how it is. Sorry if I butchered the name.
Grodzicki. Anyway, that's my...
Yeah, that's our bad pronunciation. He'll write it out for you.
And on the book it says...
Less magic, more grit.
So and it's a really nice book. I mean, it's printed at drive-through, which they use LightSource. I heard lately that they raised their prices by 5% for all printed materials, but you're still paying, like, depending on the size of the book and the type of paper and all that, it can range from like $40 to like $70 depending on the page count. But this was pretty neat, and like I said, I like it. It's full of charts though. Another thing is what they do in this game is they use the term sandbox, right?
Yes,
which is a big buzzword in not D&D, but in
gaming.
And in this one, it kind of harkens back to that random monsters, wandering monsters.
Yes.
And so what you do is you have a chart that tells you what kind of land you're in, like grassland, marshland, and then you go roll on that chart, and then you roll on another chart that tells you what kind of monsters are in that area. So then you roll again. So literally you can do that kind of deal where you're just...
The idea of having random encounters and you're in a random area.
Right. Correct.
Which to me is just, I don't know, that just kind of freaks me out. The whole only because I've accidentally killed people's horses because of charts and stuff. I mean, I'm not a big chart person because I don't know. I guess, but I don't know what to say about that. There's lots of charts,
of course,
but you don't have to use the charts, right? It's just a suggestion.
Correct. I mean, I think what they're trying to do is if you want to run a real
random,
what is it called?
Sandbox.
The GM doesn't even know what's going to go on, and so these charts literally it has different locations, and then they have different monsters if you want to do that, And the only problem is, right, the different monsters is that.
What if the monster can't be in that environment?
Well, that's why you roll on the chart for the environment.
Oh, okay.
And then in that environment, you roll for another, for what could be there. And it's not always a monster. It's just, sometimes it's just a situation.
Random encounters are just that. They're random, right? So you never know exactly what's going to happen.
Right. And I think, and a lot of that is exploration, right? You're outside, but they do have stuff for inside a city, inside a village, and stuff like that. I think it's very good for people who want to get into that game and have never experienced that or never run a game like that. So the charts are good. If you've been running the game for a long period of time, you could probably come up with your own type of stuff ahead of time. And since the monsters are really simple, there's not a whole lot to write down, right? There's not a lot of hit points, so you just write down the basic stuff of the monster, what it can do, and you're playing. There's not a lot to worry about.
Now, see, I can go with that one because having run Pathfinder and D&D with the monster manuals, I literally sometimes have to bookmark it or print it out.
Definitely, yes. I've done that.
Then hand it to somebody at the table and say, "You run this monster for me," because I don't know what they're doing.
I don't have a head for that.
There's way too much stuff, too many details on too many spells they can cast, right?
All right. So part of the less magic and grittier is treacherous magic, right? That's how they describe it. You roll to see if your spell goes. Mm-hmm. It's not automatic, not like AD&D or 5th edition. If you throw a spell, there's a chance that spell's not going to go off.
Is that where the luck comes in this game?
No, that's just your magic skill or your skill. And most of the time your spell goes off. But there's always a chance that your spell, because you're dealing with kind of like, I don't know what you call it, like
chaos,
yeah, the kind of like Warhammer, because magic is so foreign to humans and to the world. There's a chance that something really bad might happen, and I think I've described some of the things that could go wrong. Your spell goes off, but something bad happens because you are forcing magic to come into this world, right? And so sometimes something wrong can happen. Like, what was it? Was one that
we were talking about Conan, weren't we?
No, we were talking about this game, and I said one of the things that can happen is like your beard has tentacles come out of it, and it doesn't do anything bad for you, right? It doesn't harm you.
People might notice them,
and the tentacles will dry up and fall off within 1 to 3 days, right?
That I believe is from a chart.
That is a chart, right? So just weird things might happen if your magic goes awry, and the chances of magic go awry are dependent on the dice roll.
Yeah, we talked about this with the other games too, like Warhammer and
Warhammer, yeah,
and then the Symborum.
I don't know about.
We talked about using the magic can make you
have bad consequences.
Yeah, not bad consequences, but isn't it more you can go towards more evil stuff?
Right, that does happen.
You get the darkness comes into you.
Right.
So
there's a chance.
So that's interesting. And Saul and I were talking about that. It's a way that you mitigate how much magic you want to use, or as a magic user, you have to make choices. And we talked about it before, like in Shadowrun, you can put a lot into your spell, but you can also end up on your butt or knocked out, right?
Right.
And then, like Conan, we were talking about Conan, and Saul and I were having this conversation because in Conan, you don't want anyone to know you're a magic user because they're frowned upon.
Because magic is evil.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, but like, if you want it, what he says, he played a magic user and his favorite spell was Earthquake.
Right.
But also, you need to tell your party, you need to stand away from me because anything could happen when you do this.
Well, that was really tough because you start the Earthquake, right? But
you don't stop the Earthquake.
But you start the Earthquake. That's what I'm saying. And you have no control over whether it keeps going or stops.
Right.
When you stop the spell. So in Conan, much like this game, magic is frowned upon or seen as like evil,
the unknown, right?
Right, and people mistrust people who use magic, and definitely that's the same thing in Conan. Now, I think what it does is in this game is because there's might be bad consequences to throwing spells. You may not throw spells all the time.
Right.
You're not going to throw nilly-willy spells, right? You're going to be very calculating and throw spells when, I wouldn't say when absolutely necessary, but you really think about whether you want to throw a spell or not in this game.
And I harken back to a lot of these games that aren't D&D. These people don't like magic users, I guess, or they really want you to. They think magic users are too powerful, so
Right.
they really want you to think about it before you do it.
Right.
Which is interesting and so if you really want to play a magic user, that's your character, your go-to character that you
Right.
play. This might not be the game for you.
Right. You're not going to be throwing you could be throwing fireballs when you get a certain level, but there's definitely like in Shadowrun, there might be consequences to you throwing such a big spell. I think it's just neat. I think, like I said, it makes you think before you throw a spell. Well, do I really need to throw this spell?
Do I really want to have tentacles growing out of my chin?
And that's that's not even, there's like 100 different things that can happen to you. And so most of them are not dangerous, right? But they do change, like there's tentacles growing from your beard, as a beard, right? And you're like, well, people are not going to, what are you going to do? You're going to think about.
It's a human-centric game that's going to be odd.
Yeah. And you're like, people are not going to take very, what is it?
Kindly
To some weird tentacle growth coming from your face. I think it's very interesting, and it makes it for a more interesting role-playing experience in that sense.
Yes.
Because then you're not going to go to town because people are going to, you're cursed or whatever, right? That's weird things can I'm
going to go camping for 5 days.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting. I think the idea that magic is very, very mysterious and very dangerous. I think that's pretty cool. I think that really makes, probably why we don't have a magic user in our party.
That's probably why.
And we're kind of like sad sacks. Well, there's only 3 of us in the party, right? That's playing. It's not a big group. And so we have to be very careful about the things we do. Even though yesterday they were very,
not careful,
very gung ho. And I'm like, I'm not going back down there. And then they finally, my brother says, okay, well, somebody will cure you, because I was wounded, right?
Right.
I only have 6 hit points left. I'm not going to go back down there. So I don't know if he threw me a bone or not, but I was able to get cured, and I went back down.
I don't know. It's a very interesting game. I'm not so big on the charts, but I guess it does kind of throw different things into the mix.
Right. I think that's the whole point, is that everybody, and so far, my friend Mike and my brother Felipe have been really, what is it? They've been using the charts and being random, and it's worked out pretty well. Mike totally did his randomly.
What about Jim? Did he do?
I think Jim likes planning things, because he likes maps. So his was a little bit more planned and more classic style of.
I can see that. I'm not so much into the charts myself, the random stuff, so I can understand that.
And then at the very end, it says it's a generic rule set. It basically does use D&D like a basis for their rules, but it changes it enough that
it's not the same.
It's not really D&D. I mean, it is only because you still have like strength, dexterity, and stuff like that. But they added perception for a trait and luck.
Luck. That's what I wanted to ask you about. Does the deluxe edition have luck? Because I read about it.
Yeah, and luck is basically saves your bacon for being such a harsh.
But you only get 10 points plus your adventure level, or your.
That I don't know. I know you get so many points, and you get them back. I think at the end of not the end of the session, but at the end of the adventure.
Yeah.
And
you use them for luck saves and luck checks.
Right. Then they're specific. They don't totally save your bacon. There's a chance it might save your bacon. So you use luck for a chance to reroll. You got to roll and see if your luck really works, and then you get to save your bacon.
So you're either lucky or unlucky.
Right. Right. And then as your luck goes down, your chances of succeeding go down, I believe, in the luck roll. Yeah. So you really got to use that judiciously. Yeah. I've never used luck. I think I've used luck maybe once, but because I really wanted to hit a target and I didn't hit it the first time, so I go, use luck.
Yeah.
I got lucky.
Oh, that's like hope in Lord of the Rings.
Right, like hope in
not
Lord of the Rings.
Rings.
It's kind of like plot
The
points.
One Ring.
Like plot points or bennies in Savage Worlds and stuff like that. But it's not as
not as powerful
Right.
because you don't get to do what you want. You get
Right.
to roll to see if you can do what you want.
Right. So everything's mitigated. So I kind of like this rule set. We're running it right now instead of D&D. In our we play Friday nights online with me,
Your friends.
my brother, and my friends and stuff. And so far, they really like it. I think I'm supposed to run next, but I haven't decided if I want to run this game, continue running, or maybe run a different game, because they seem to be doing it really well, and I'm not sure.
You just want to break up the monotony? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
not monotony. It's a really good game. I'm having a lot of fun, but
you just want to throw a wrench in their plans.
I might just run. I might run it. I'll show them how to run this game, and then maybe the next time it's my turn to run, I'll run something different. But
show them how to run this game. You're such a dork.
But I really like it. I mean, this pickpocket press guy, Stefan Gradzinski, he's running a pretty good set of rules. And if you like gritty kind of games, then there's his Low Life 2090, which is a fantasy cyberpunk game, is also very imaginative and also invokes the same type of rule set that this does. It has the exact same type of rule set, except obviously slightly changed for a cyberpunk futuristic setting, which is pretty cool. And then he also has a setting called the Midlands setting. He made it for Low Fantasy Gaming, but then he kickstarted a different one for 5th edition. So you can actually get a 5th edition setting of his Midlands, which is basically a low fantasy setting called the Midlands, and it's like very medievalish English type of setting from what I saw. I don't have it though. I mean, I have it on PDF. I don't have the physical book. I got a ton of PDFs.
Anyway.
And I got that because I kickstarted the 2090. And they go, do you want... I think I did go with the added PDFs for this and the other stuff. Mm-hmm. So there you go.
There you go.
There it is. So I think we'll stop talking about alternatives to D&D. We went over 3 games, Low Fantasy Gaming, Warhammer, and Symbaroum. They're all fantasy games. They're all quite different, come from different
Angles is a good word.
Ankles?
Angles.
Direction than D&D 5th edition. I think they're all really well written. The settings and the rules, and it is different enough that you're not going to get the same experience as you would playing 5th edition.
There you go. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
And you have a good day.